Today I'm going to tell you how I went from knowing nobody at a networking event to ending up on the keynote speaker Gary Vee's boat, all in the span of about 6 hours. So stay tuned, because this is one of the wildest stories I have for you, and I think it's gonna have some really good notes about how to do really good networking at networking events. Now, first off, why do you network? You network to get people who can help you know other people who know people. I don't know if that's an oversimplification or an undersimplification, but long story short, knowing people is always a good thing, because think about yourself. You have a network. You have a group of people that surround you that all have different skills, assets, abilities, and connections. Now, everyone else has that too. And some people have a way bigger web of people, and some people have a much more high value web of people than the one you may have. Obviously, I don't have the hugest one in the world. I am 19, I went to a public high school. I haven't generally met that many people through networking, if you will. Now, what I'm gonna be doing today is largely addressing an event I recently just went to called the Possible Conference. And it was one of the most incredible things I have ever done, and I met so many great people along the way. And I'm going to line out exactly what I did, and then you could take a lot of lessons away from it, because I took a lot away from it as it was happening. And also, I'm going to line out how within the span of 10 minutes, I was able to connect with Gary Vee, Jake Paul, Aiden Ross, and some other big YouTube creators. So let's get started. About 2 months ago, I reached out to the event Possible. I was looking for events in my area to meet people kind of around my age that are getting into entrepreneurship. I like spending time around people who are very involved in building something. Obviously, I'm a Lego YouTuber, so I'm always building something. That was something that was really important to me, and I think it's a thing that a lot of universities and things like that don't provide, to find that type of network of people, just optimistic, driven people who are looking to make improvements and who have already done pretty incredible things for their age. And this is something I would generally advise to anyone who is under the age of 18 and looking to move up in the world in one way or another, is surround yourself with people that are like-minded in that regard, that want to push themselves, that don't take weekends, that don't want to just waste all their time doing nothing. They want to make something of themselves. So anyway, I reached out to this event called Possible. Now, it is sponsored by Google. They power it. They are one of the, if not the biggest internet platforms on earth. They are the biggest internet platform on earth. And basically every major company goes to this thing. The first year they had the event, which was only a couple years ago, Elon Musk was one of their keynote speakers. And this year, in fact, the CEO of X was also there. And that was wild. Now, it was held at the Fontainebleau. This is a historic resort that is based in Miami and is known for Frank Sinatra and a lot of other famous singers being at, and it's managed to hold its relevance over the years. And I absolutely loved the building as a Frank Sinatra fan myself. They were playing Sinatra music, they had pictures, it was awesome. And I also managed to be able to get in for free because I have this thing called a subscriber base. So the event themselves were actually looking to gear their brand. They wanted to promote it more. They wanted it to be seen by more people. And my YouTube channel and my Instagram have quite a few followers, not an insignificant amount. And I had actually applied, and not 30 minutes later, I was reached out to by one of the coordinators of the event, whose name is Leia. Thank you very much for the opportunity, Leia. It was awesome. And she actually wanted to ask if I could create this giant model of a flamingo. Now, the event's logo is a flamingo of some sort, and they wanted me to design this for the event. Now, the issue was, the event's 2 months away, and practically speaking, that's going to be very difficult, because I'd have to stop literally everything I was doing to get that done, and that's not the easiest thing to do in the world. Plus, actually getting the parts and designing and organizing something that big is very expensive and takes quite a long time. But I thought there are ways I could do this, where I could work myself into the event, that we could do, I don't know, what would you call a special handout of some sort, or we just do this giant flamingo. The conclusion we did end up coming to is that that was going to be done next year, but I was still invited to come this year, feel out the event, understand what it was, and I was really excited about that. And I'm really excited to build a 7-foot tall flamingo next year. That should be crazy. And this also helped my platform in the event. Going into it, I already had an established connection with people there, which is really helpful, especially if you want to meet people. And one of the people that was going to be speaking at this event was the chief marketing officer of Lego. And I will tell you how I got to meet her as well, because it was quite an incredible story. So first, I get there bright and early at 7 in the morning. It turns out at a lot of these events, most people don't show up at 7. So I got there really, really early. I got to actually pray on the beach in the morning. It was gorgeous out. I got to watch the sunrise, which was just incredible and an amazing way to start the day. And the hotel is on the water, which just added to the atmosphere. And a lot of the networking events were actually outside, which just made it like the perfect, most gorgeous environment. And I went around the hotel to feel it out. I saw all the pictures of the cool Sinatra stuff that I didn't know at the time was there, but it was really cool. And they even had a picture with all of their partners. And if you can see this billboard, there are a lot of big companies. In fact, most of the bigger companies in the country were there. Like I honestly struggle to think of a company that is not at this event. They had an introductory period. I got a free sweatshirt. Here we go. Oh yeah, look at that. Oh, that's fire. And yeah, and just as I was sitting down, as they were doing like kind of the intro period of the event, I got to sit down to a guy who used to work for PayPal as an engineer and then went on to Google and now is working outside of Google to sell things to Google. Really neat guy. And then they had their first speaking engagements with the NFL. And we got to hear from Tim Ellis, who's their chief marketing officer, the head of all of the reach out to all their potential customers. And there was an NFL player there and the head president and CEO of Big's Brothers and Big Sisters, which is a huge charity here in the United States. And something I learned that was fascinating about this, and generally that you can learn from all these things, is you're not going to just hear about this company specific thing or this person specific thing. You're there to get little tidbits of new information that add into your Rolodex in your head, if that's what you call it, of knowledge about industries. And one of the things that I learned that's fascinating about the NFL, which also I guess I'm applying to most major league sports, is their target demographic of who they try to spend the most money reaching. I didn't realize this. I would have thought it was 20, 30, 40-year-olds, you know, the type of people that watch football most of the time. Turns out it's not. Turns out it's between the ages of like 8 to like 12, 8 to 14. That is the target reached out of these organizations, in large part because they want to have lifelong fans. So they get you when you're a kid and you're still not necessarily a fan of sports, but you can be. And for the rest of your life, you're a fan. And this gave me an idea because obviously I'd like to work with the NFL. That would be a cool partnership on, say, a YouTube video or something. So I connected with the CMO who was up on stage. I just went on LinkedIn and connected with him, and he connected back with me, which I was not expecting, but is really cool. So I messaged him, and hopefully we'll be hearing back from him at some point because I think that would be a really cool collaboration. I also got to meet with other people while I was there. They had a couple other speakers that weren't particularly relevant to what I was interested in. And then after a little bit more talking to people, just finding out the businesses that they're involved with, they had an outdoor lunch period. Now, a little known fact about me, not so little known anymore, I do keep kosher, and I was just kind of planning on not eating much for that period. I brought like some snacks and stuff to hold me over. But then I do see these two more religiously presenting Jewish people who I approach and sit at the table and ask them kind of what their plan was eating wise. And apparently the hotel was supposed to have food there, but it didn't work out. Anyway, I got talking to them and we got to get a really good connection going. But we started brainstorming and I started listening to all the things that they're working on. I kind of told them a bit about what I do. And then other people on the table were interjecting and stuff like that. And then eventually we decided we were gonna get food from an outside place. Now in that time, we actually head down to the lobby. And when we were in the lobby, we were just sitting, waiting, I guess, for the food and talking. And while that was happening, we see this another religiously presenting Jew. The word would be Hasidic for anyone who doesn't know that. That is like a certain section of Judaism that is very deeply practicing. And this guy happens to be famous within that community. He's known for wrapping tefillin, which is phylacteries biblically, with famous Jewish people like Aiden Ross, Jake Paul. I'm trying to think of the other ones, Gary Vee. We'll get to that in a bit. So we see him, we make an introduction to him, and it turns out Elliot, the character we are with, and it turns out Elliot, one of the people we're with, knows Gary loosely, and he tells the other person, Yossi, who is this famous person who knows Aiden Ross amongst others, that Gary Vee was, right across the street on his boat. And this is where it gets interesting. So we're heading over there, we're chilling. We start trying to talk with the lady who is in charge of letting people on and off the boat. And then I end up talking to this person that's on the boat, just casually as Yossi's doing his thing. And then I see over right around here, where I'm looking, you see Gary Vee just sitting there. I have a picture of it actually, because I had the Meta Ray-Bans on. And I actually go say, hey Gary, huge fan. I did like this or something. And then he walked out of the boat. He came and he shook my hand, which I thought I had on my Meta glasses, but I didn't. And then he said, thank you so much. And then I said to him, thank you so much, Gary. My friend here has a question for you. And then Yossi asked him if he wanted to wrap tefillin, and that happened. And then Gary basically says, yeah, sure, we'll do it right after his speaking engagement, or before. We didn't make a precise time, but we knew it was gonna happen. We locked it and Gary committed to it, which is awesome. And then I said to Yossi walking back, I said, listen, if I just made that happen, I wanna join you in your next collab with Aiden Ross. He said, sure. He says, when it's gonna happen. Anyway, we end up going to some more networking events. I get to meet a couple people from Google, which was really neat. And they even had this panel with with one of Gary Vee's CMOs, and that was really cool to see because I've been watching both these people for quite a bit. I've been watching Gary Vee, in fact, since I was like 14. He really motivated me to just start doing things, and that's when it started to get really cool because Gary Vee still had his speaking engagement that we had to go to, and when we went to it, it was incredible for me because as I was sitting there listening to it, he was kind of explicating about why it is that basically everyone's marketing sucks and that they should use social media influencers and social media to grow their businesses. And I ate it up. I love that. He was explaining how organically tested content and stuff that people want to watch of their own volition, not that they're being forced down their throat, people will be more likely to work with that ad. He was giving an example of Miralac, an ad he did that organically got like 30 million views, and you could see their sales go up on Amazon correlative to that viral video. And I know another example that I was just thinking of the Saratoga water. If you remember that guy who was pouring the Saratoga water into the ice bowls and sticking his head in it, and the Saratoga stocks went up and they were getting sold out everywhere. So like he has a very good point with reference to that. And one of my friends, Elliot, actually went up and asked him a question, and it ended up taking up a not insignificant chunk of his time on stage. I'm going to play that here, and I'll have a timestamp at the bottom. That way it tells you if you want to skip ahead, but if you're interested to hear what Gary has to say in reference to his question, here it is.
You've spoken about most recently, first time I heard it was on a LinkedIn Live interview back in November, about the paradigm shift of social media is now interest media, where content is not being pushed by algorithms to people who are connected to you, but it's being pushed to people who have that interest.
No doubt in my mind that we are no longer in the social media era. We are fully in the interest media era. We are standing up accounts that have no followers and getting more views on our content than the accounts that have 1 million followers. It's over. Go ahead.
I'm so happy that I was able to set that up for you.
Thank you, sir.
My question is, what does the industry do? What are you doing to track it authentically, accurately? Vanity metrics, it all can be manipulated. Now that we're in a range of interest media where if someone's interested in it, they're shoving the content to them.
Let me jump in since we're jamming.
Yeah.
Miralax, which normally gets 300 views on its creative before we started working with it, had a video the other day that got 36 million views. Immediately, in the next 72 hours, miraculously, stunningly, its Amazon rank went from some absurd number, 437,000 to in the thousands. They sold an obnoxious amount of product. Elliot, the only thing VaynerMedia has been measuring for the 15 years we've been in this industry is sales. Now, sales doesn't come immediately sometimes, and you gotta figure all that out, and I'm very empathetic that I will forever die on this hill. Measuring brand is like measuring love and God. It's not going to be a black and white thing. But again, for the people in this room that are paying attention to the miraculous things that have happened at Chili's restaurant or Abercrombie and Fitch, there is a 100% correlation to organically earned views and business results. Not posting a piece of crap on social media and spending media dollars to amplify it to give it 1 million views. No. Organically earned views lead to sales. And Elliot, the reason everyone in this room will be on this bandwagon is because the data is black and white to the sales. And that will be too compelling to ignore, no matter how much some in this room want to hold on to yesterday.
Same thing with Ocean Spray. You talked about the Mango gummies, crazy moments.
There's every day on social, on TikTok and Instagram, there's a video that is going viral that is creating more financial impact on brands than every TV commercial that brand has run in the last several years. It's just real life. Again, we can continue to live as if not. We continue to fight for things we make more margin on, or what our company does for a living that does not map to this. But it doesn't make it any less true. And I do believe the walls are closing in on us, and that's it.
And then leading into the creator economy, and I'll finish with this so I can sit down and give other people a chance, is super fans, right? Everyone wants to know and identify who their super fans are. How do you see that growing, that you can be able to identify it, not to manipulate it, but to quantify it and to be able to do something with it authentically?
Yeah, I think, look, people will continue to build CRMs. There's tons of startups. There's new startups like WAP and others that are giving you the data instead of it being owned by the social networks, the blockchain.
Now next is the cool part, because next is the part where we got on the Gary's boat. So right after Gary finishes speaking, we're all jetting. We're getting to the boat. So that way we don't miss him, obviously. We get to the boat, Yossi's at the boat, and then Gary Vee starts coming out and he makes his way over. He very graciously invites us on. I want to watch the clip as to see what I got. I shake his hand, and he was an absolute gentleman throughout this whole thing, might I add. I know he's pretty vulgar generally in terms of, cursing and that type of stuff, but he was real gentleman throughout this whole thing. And then he proceeds to spend the next 6-7 minutes with us that lead into this clip. So my friend Yossi actually wrapped him into fill-in, which is this thing that people in the Jewish community do. And that was a really powerful, because he really got to explicate some of his family's history. And it was really, I'm sure, meaningful to him to get to do something like this. And we do have some of the extra footage of it, obviously, that I don't think has been shown. It blew up in my community. People were like spamming my DMs that aren't in the Lego community, obviously in the Jewish community. And people were like, whoa, that's crazy that happened. And then through that, I actually got to speak to Gary for a little bit, about 30 seconds, and then we got a picture together. And here is what he said and what I told him.
I made a Lego YouTube channel. It got a couple thousand views, nothing crazy, but I stuck to it. I now do it for full time. I dropped out of college and I have made $150,000. And it's you inspired me.
I'm so proud of you.
It's you.
I'm proud of you. No, it's you. You did it.
But you really inspired me. And I want to thank you. And I was wondering if you could get a picture.
Of course.
Would you collab on social posts?
I do.
Anyways, we got that locked in. I got to network a bit with a couple more people for the rest of the day. But honestly, I wasn't coming down from that, because in that span of time, I got locked a collab possibly with Aiden Ross. I'm owed one at least, as well as Gary Vee. And I'm actually gonna be seeing him again soon, but that's a different story, because that was just day one. We still have 2 days to go. Now, day two, I had one objective. I wanted to meet with the chief marketing officer of Lego. How did this happen? How do you meet the chief marketing officer of Lego? She's on the stage, she's a keynote, she's not walking around the event. Kind of hard to access. Now, I got to take a couple pictures of the event in the morning. There's just some amazing stuff they had set up inside, outside. And the owner of the event actually went up, and I identified, and I knew what he looked like now, which is useful, and that'll come up later. Anyways, the CEO of Walmart came out and got to speak, and that was incredible. And we also learned that Jeffrey Katzenberg, who is responsible for producing a lot of the big DreamWorks movies like Shrek and Shrek 2 and all the other DreamWorks ones, those are the ones that are relevant to me. But apparently he was there as well, which is like crazy. So we get to hear from the Walmart CEO, see what he had to say, and that was really interesting. And right after him was the Lego CMO. Now I'm gonna have to rewind a minute. The night before, I was thinking, how do I want to make an impression on Julia Golden, who is absolutely incredible at her job, might I add, and I am just astounded by her story. She has a very fascinating personal circumstance, and her family escaped communist Russia in large part due to anti-Semitism. They had to leave. That's incredible, and I could never fully relate to something like that. And I was thinking, how do I make an impression on her? She also happens to be a member of the tribe, and I remember my rabbi gave me a Lego mezuzah, and that was kind of when I started my religious journey, probably 5 years ago now, and I always cherished that, and it stood on the wall of my YouTube studio for almost the entirety of when I was running my channel. And I was like, what if I make her that? So it was like 2 in the morning. This is when I came up with this idea. I run into my studio right here, and I put together something. I happen to have an extra one by chance. You don't just happen to have these things lying around, but I did. And I built one. I built it out of Lego, and then I put it in this old classic Lego, because I didn't take enough pictures of this, to be honest with you. I put it in this gorgeous 1985 classic Lego case. I put in my business card, my Florida Man minifigure, and my merch, and then she had her panel, in which it was really cool because she talked a bit about what's going on in my space and how Lego's gotten over 21 billion views now organically on social media, on YouTube, I believe they were taking credit for. I don't know. And in fact, my friend Danny Bob ended up in one of the pictures with one of the builds from a video I think she just did, which has a lot of my stuff in it, which is really funny. Anyway, I didn't get any of this neck part on video, so you're just gonna have to take my word for it. So she was wrapping up her speech, and actually in the back of the room, they were giving away a bunch of the new Lego car sets. Wait, I wanna show you. See, like, it was the day before release day I got these, which is awesome. But yeah, and then as I was sitting kind of close to the front because I was trying to spec out where would she end up being so I could reach out to her. And I see the runner of the event. His name was Christian, and he's walking towards the back, and I'm like, okay, this is my shot. I go up to him. I just walk up to him with the Lego case, and I say, hey, Christian, I love the event you're running here. It's really incredible, and I wanted to give this to Julie, who's their marketing officer. And he said, oh, sure, I'd be happy to do that. Let's see, do you want to we go backstage? I haven't met her yet. He hadn't met her yet either. So yeah, we wait for her to wrap up. She goes backstage, then we go backstage. They take a couple pictures. He introduces me to her, and I shake her hand and I say, Julia, it's a real pleasure to meet you. I run a Lego channel, over 700,000 followers across all the platforms, and I know you're a strong Jew and a proud Jew, and I really wanted to give you this. And she said, I am a strong Jew, in reference to what I just said. It was like, okay, good. Some people aren't. Some people aren't very proud of it. But I open it up and I hand her the Lego mezuzah. And I think she was it took her a second to process. And then she looks up and says, this is one of the nicest things that anyone's ever given me. Whoa. Which it was really kind to hear from her directly and hear that. And additionally, I was, I guess, very flattered that she could say that to me. Anyway, I did get to fill her in a bit more about what I do and how I'd like to establish a point of connection between myself and my YouTube community in Lego, and how I know a lot of the players, and I wanted to be able to connect the Lego YouTube community to Lego Direct. And we ended up taking down some of their information, so now I have their personal email and stuff like that, which is great, and we'll hopefully be hearing from them soon. So that was that story, and I think that's just 2 in a row. We had the Gary Vee thing the day before, we had Julia today. It was wild. So at that point, I basically accomplished what I came to the event for, or what I was hoping to get out of the event. And after that, it just kind of became a whole new thing. I got to network a lot with people. I got to meet a lot of new people, and I was kind of refining my pitch as to how I could work with different companies and brands. Jiffy was there, and I got to talk to their head of social medias about potentially, say, running a Jiffy related Lego sponsorship integration. Adobe was there, and I got to make a really good connection with the Adobe people and doing an integration there, because I know they have worked in the past with some of my friends like Half Asleep Chris. I got to meet with a bunch of other companies and kind of pitch them on what I could do in terms of sponsorship integrations, that type of stuff, to bring them a lot of value in terms of sponsorships. And then also, if they just want a Lego build for their company or something like that, and we could work that in as a part of the deal, that could be pretty cool too. So we got to connect with Reddit people, we got to connect with some Video Elephant people. In fact, they were giving out stupid amounts of things at this event. I got some free Reddit merch. I got this coconut with a monogram in it that they put a straw in that was really cool. They even had a literal puppy playpen with puppies in it that you could go and play with. That's so cute. Here's me with a puppy. Oh, and one of my favorites was Target had a claw machine that you could claw these dog. He's the Target dog. And it was all really fun. And one of the booths had a really neat setup. They had this whole 80s theme with TVs and stuff in the background. I think I got another video with that. That was so cool. And then after that, I got to listen to Martha Stewart, the famous Martha Stewart speak. And they were giving out her book in the back, but I honestly didn't really want her cookbook, to be fully honest with you. And then that night I went again to dinner with Elliot and John. And then I went back, they had a laser party. It was kind of not my speed, so I didn't really feel like sticking around. So I went home because I was tired. And then that night, coolest thing happened. On top of all of this, the Costco guys, you know them? I've been wanting to collaborate with them legitimately for months now. A solid year I've been wanting to collaborate with them. And they just happened to do their first ever YouTube live stream, in which I commented, yo guys, shot in the dark, would you want to collab and do a Lego boom meter? And then AJ says, yo, Republic Studs, I think I have a clip.
Republic Studs, what's going on? Republic Studs wants to collab and do a boom meter.
And I was like, yes! So then I email them, I get an email back with his phone number, and under the phone number, it says boom. And then I text him and I say, AJ, hey, it's Logan, the Lego channel. Super excited to look forward to our collab. And then he says, my man, boom, which was peak. I love it. That was the end of that day. That was how I ended that day. So I'm not on this. Anyway, the next day my plans were a little more chilled. In fact, I originally planned to not do anything at all because it was at a hotel. I was like, oh, I could totally go just chill on the beach, and then then they have some events and I could get some like free food while I was there. They had like fireballs, which is great. And that was my original intention for the day, but I ended up getting sucked in and doing a bunch more of the conferences and networking with people, which worked out. I got to hear from a guy who's in the middle of creating content creator-based TV shows where they kind of give them a platform and a microphone to go make TV content and then sell it to like streaming services, which is really neat. And then I also got to hear from the president of Lego's marketing, Beth McKenna Moore, and she spoke with Target, and they were talking about in-store brand integrations. It was really interesting to hear the back end of that, because I go to these a lot of the time. It's what I do for work. So practically speaking, it was really fun to hear them and what Target and Lego are doing together. I didn't get to speak to her just because, again, it was kind of difficult to orchestrate. It's not the smoothest thing, and I think I pulled a genie out of a bottle that first time. So I wasn't super upset. I was happy with what happened. But the guy I was next to actually worked very closely or knew very closely on one of the Target people on stage who works very closely with Lego. So I asked him, hey, would you be able to put me in contact with this person? And he said, sure. So we'll wait to see if that pans out. Anyhow, I was on cloud nine. I went outside and enjoyed the weather a little bit. I got to go on the beach for like a little bit, like an hour, and read, and that was really nice. I had to spend like 20 bucks on sunscreen, but we're not gonna talk about that. And then the last major speaker that they had was Linda Yaccarino, who is the CEO of X. She works very closely with Elon Musk, obviously, and that was just a fascinating talk to hear. And it's like I was like not that far away from her, and it's just really cool. And also the guy who I happened to be sitting next to also was a big fundraiser for children's museums and stuff of that sort. And we got talking, and he has a lot of connections with Nickelodeon and that whole media world, which is really cool. And then they had like the end closing out party where they were giving out all these really stylish hats, and I got one. And we got a picture with the runner of the event, Christian, and that was really awesome. And then I also got to meet with a guy, Joseph, who also does social media, and he's super cool. And yeah, that's basically it. Now, what should you take away from all of this? First off, put yourself in situations where you can win. I think a lot of people just don't put themselves in the situations in the first place. The fact that I even just put in that application out of the blue to this random event, which didn't necessarily tie directly to what I'm doing, opened a bastion of doors to me just by being in the rooms with all these people. It was really, really helpful. And being there in person, I think, does make a difference as opposed to just cold emailing. Like going up and shaking someone's hand and saying, let's do business, let's make a deal. That's massively helpful. And we'll see what actually pans out of it. But if I got absolutely nothing else from this event other than the experiences, the experience was really unique because I was probably the only YouTube creator there. There was a handful of other people who do social media, and one of them actually did have a YouTube channel, and they were all excellent and very nice people. And I got to meet with some of the people who were there on their influencer pass or what have you, their ambassador pass. And they all run very interesting programs, obviously very different to mine, but there weren't very many. So clearly not as many people in my space took up the opportunity to actually go and apply to things like this. So I think that's something that people in the YouTube space should be more conscious of, because there are ways that at these events, all they're talking about, especially this is a marketing event, talking about organic growth, is where I live. I haven't paid for an ad. I haven't paid for any piece of viewership in my whole life. And they're talking about digital media and social media and content creation. And they're talking about all the money that goes into this, which I end up being the end result. I end up being the one who is making the content and stuff like that. And it's kind of just all the in-betweens to get to me and people like me specifically. And it's beyond incredible. It was a really fascinating experience. And I want to thank Possible for having me there. And I think that anyone, use your special talent and go full in on it. Market the crud out of it. Think of like, what is your defining trait? What are you best at? And then sell that 10x. This is my strong suit. This is why I'm better than everyone else. And this is why I can do it better than anyone else. Either way, with all that said, I hope you enjoyed this and I hope something is useful from it. I don't know what, but I wanted to tell this story on video because if I didn't tell it and show pictures and stuff, it wouldn't seem real. Oh, and I just got off the phone with Big Boom AJ today, and he just invited me. They're doing a card collecting event with Gary Vee again in my backwoods in Cooper City, which is literally like 10 minutes from where I live. So put yourself in the circumstances. You get to meet people, you get to do cool things, and it's fun. It's fun. You got to do it. Either ways, if you want to watch more videos from me, if you're interested in the journey, check out these. Adios, amigos.